Will it hurt when I put your thing in my mouth? The innocent question from the young Cardassian female echoed through the ornate negotiation chamber, causing Billy Howard to choke on his own saliva. He'd prepared for countless scenarios as Earth's top diplomat, but this wasn't one of them. Billy had arrived on the Cardassian homeworld mere hours ago, his mind focused on securing the rare mineral that could revolutionize Earth's technology. The reptilian aliens, known for their complex social hierarchies and cunning nature, had discovered vast deposits of the substance. Earth needed it, and Billy was tasked with making it happen. The negotiation chamber, with its high-vaulted ceilings and intricate stone carvings, was designed to intimidate. Billy stood tall, his crisp uniform a stark contrast to the scaled skin and ridged foreheads of the Cardassians surrounding him. At his side was Boron, a young female assigned as his liaison. Her large, inquisitive eyes hadn't left him since they met. It started with a simple gesture. Billy, feeling the pressure of the impending talks, popped a breath mint into his mouth. Boron's fascination was immediate. She'd never seen such an object before, and in her inexperience with humans, assumed it held great significance. That's when she asked the question that would change everything. Gul Dukat, the lead Cardassian negotiator, seized the moment. His lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, he purred, voice dripping with false concern. It seems we have a cultural misunderstanding on our hands. Billy's stomach dropped. He knew that tone. It was the sound of carefully laid plans crumbling. In our culture, Dukat continued, such an intimate question can only be asked between betrothed individuals. I'm afraid you've inadvertently proposed marriage to young Boron here. The room fell silent. Billy's mind raced. This had to be a joke, a negotiation tactic. But the serious expressions on the Cardassian faces told him otherwise. Surely we can explain, Billy started, but Dukat cut him off. To refuse now would be a grave insult to Cardassian honor. I'm afraid you must follow through with the engagement, or our talks will have to be suspended. The implied threat hung in the air. Earth needed this deal. Failure could mean losing access to the mineral, potentially sparking an interstellar conflict. Billy's communicator buzzed, a message from Earth. Maintain the charade at all costs. With a deep breath, Billy turned to Boron. Her scales shimmered in the chamber's light, and he saw a mix of confusion and excitement in her eyes. He took her hand, ignoring the coolness of her skin against his. I would be honored, he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. News of the impending human-Cardassian marriage spread like wildfire. Conservative factions on both sides were in an uproar. Humans feared contamination of their gene pool, while Cardassians saw it as a threat to their species' purity. As Billy left the chamber, Boron clinging to his arm, he realized he was now at the center of a political firestorm. He had to navigate alien customs, juggle Earth's demands, and somehow secure the trade agreement that could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. And through it all, he couldn't shake the feeling that Boron's innocent question had awakened something inside him, a curiosity about what it might be like to truly bridge the gap between their species. The fate of two worlds now rested on a misunderstood breath mint and an accidental engagement. Billy straightened his shoulders. It was time to show the galaxy what humans were made of. The news of Billy's engagement to Boron spread across Cardassia Prime like a plasma storm. Within days, the streets of the capital city were filled with angry protesters, their scaled faces contorted in disgust at the thought of a human Cardassian union. Billy watched from the window of his diplomatic quarters as a sea of signs bobbed in the amber light of the setting sun. Keep Cardassia pure, one placard read. Another showed a crude drawing of a human and Cardassian, crossed out with a thick red line. Billy sighed, running a hand through his hair. He'd known this wouldn't be easy, but the intensity of the backlash caught him off guard. A chime at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Enter, he called out, straightening his uniform. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Gul Dukat's angular face. The Cardassian's eyes glinted with barely concealed amusement. Ah, Billy, Dukat purred, stepping into the room. I trust you're finding your accommodations adequate? Billy nodded stiffly. They're fine, thank you. Dukat's lips curled into a smile. Good. Good. I've come to inform you of a new arrangement. Given the delicate nature of your situation, I've assigned Boron to act as your personal bodyguard. Billy's eyebrows shot up. Is that really necessary? Oh, I insist, Dukat said, his voice smooth as silk. We wouldn't want any harm to come to Earth's top diplomat, now would we? Before Billy could protest further, Boron entered the room. Her scales shimmered in the artificial light, and her large eyes fixed on Billy with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I will protect you with my life, Boron stated matter-of-factly, her hand resting on the disruptor at her hip. Dukat clapped his hands together. Excellent. I'll leave you two to get acquainted. With a final smirk, he swept out of the room. As the days passed, Billy found himself under constant scrutiny. Cardassian eyes followed his every move, filled with suspicion and barely concealed hostility. Boron remained a constant presence at his side, her lithe form always alert for potential threats. Despite the tense atmosphere, Billy couldn't help but feel a growing connection to his Cardassian bodyguard. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the government complex together, he found himself fascinated by her perspective on Cardassian culture. Why do you humans insist on smiling so much? Boron asked one day as they walked to yet another negotiation session. It seems inefficient. Billy chuckled. It's a way of showing friendliness, I suppose. Don't Cardassians have similar expressions? Boron tilted her head, considering. We have our own ways of conveying emotions, but they are more subtle. As they talked, Billy began to see beyond Boron's reptilian features, noticing the intelligence that shone in her eyes and the grace with which she moved. For her part, Boron seemed increasingly intrigued by human behavior, peppering Billy with questions about Earth customs and culture. Their growing rapport, however, did little to ease the mounting tensions in the negotiation chamber. Earth's representatives pushed hard for access to the rare mineral, but the Cardassians, emboldened by the controversy surrounding Billy and Boron's engagement, made increasingly outrageous demands. We propose a trade agreement that would give Cardassia Prime oversight of all Earth's applications of the mineral, Gul Dukat announced, his voice dripping with false benevolence. For your own protection, of course. Billy's heart made. He knew such an agreement would effectively make Earth technologically dependent on Cardassian goodwill. As the human diplomats sputtered in protest, Billy's mind raced, searching for a way to level the playing field. That night, unable to sleep, Billy used his diplomatic access to quietly investigate Cardassian mining operations. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The Cardassians had grossly exaggerated both the rarity of the mineral and the difficulty of its extraction. They were playing Earth for fools. Billy's finger hovered over the button that would transmit this crucial information back to Earth. But as he prepared to send the message, his eyes fell on Boron, sleeping peacefully on a nearby couch. The sight of her gave him pause. Could he betray her trust like this? Before he could decide, a sudden explosion rocked the building. Alarms blared as smoke filled the corridor outside. Billy's heart raced as he realized this was no accident. Someone was trying to kill him. Boron was on her feet in an instant, disruptor drawn. Stay behind me, she hissed, her eyes scanning for threats. As they made their way through the chaos, Billy caught glimpses of a shadowy figure always just out of reach. The attackers seemed to know the building's layout intimately, leading them on a deadly chase through maintenance tunnels and forgotten corridors. Finally, they found themselves cornered in a dimly lit storage room. As the door slid open, Billy braced himself for the worst. But instead of an assassin, they were confronted by the stern face of Gul Madred, a high-ranking military officer known for his xenophobic views. Well, Madred sneered, his eyes cold. What do we have here? A human spy and his Cardassian collaborator. Boron stepped forward, her voice steady. Stand down, Gul Madred. I am acting under direct orders from Gul Dukat. Madred's laugh was harsh. Dukat is a fool, blinded by his own ambition. He can't see the threat this human poses to our very way of life. As Madred ranted about Cardassian supremacy, Billy's mind raced. He knew they were in grave danger, but he also sensed an opportunity. If he could expose Madred's actions, it might force the Cardassians to negotiate in good faith. But before Billy could act, Boron made a decision that would change everything. In one fluid motion, she holstered her disruptor and placed herself between Billy and Madred. "I will not let you harm him," she declared, her voice filled with a conviction that surprised even her. Madred's eyes narrowed. "You would choose this alien over your own people?" Boron's reply was firm. "I choose what is right." As tension filled the air, Billy realized that the fate of two worlds now hung in the balance. Whatever happened next would shape the future of human-Cardassian relations for generations to come. And at the center of it all stood an unlikely pair. A human diplomat and his Cardassian protector, united against the forces that sought to tear them apart. Apart, the air crackled with tension as Madred's narrowed eyes darted between them. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the complex. The storage room's emergency lights flashed red, bathing them all in an eerie glow. Madred's communicator chirped urgently. "What is it?" he barked, never taking his eyes off Billy and Boron. A panicked voice came through. "Sir, we're under attack. Multiple explosions reported at Earth diplomatic facilities across the city." Madred's face twisted into a triumphant sneer. "It seems your time has run out, human," he spat, reaching for his weapon. But before he could draw, Boron moved with lightning speed. Her scaled hand clamped down on Madred's wrist, twisting it at an unnatural angle. The Cardassian officer howled in pain, his disruptor clattering to the floor. "Run!" Boron shouted to Billy, her eyes wild with fear and drive. They bolted from the room, leaving Madred writhing on the floor. As they raced through smoke-filled corridors, Billy's mind reeled. Who was behind these attacks? And what did it mean for the delicate negotiations? Over the next few days, the situation on Cardassia Prime deteriorated rapidly. Reports flooded in of extensive damage to Earth's embassy and other diplomatic outposts. The death toll mounted, each casualty driving another wedge between humans and Cardassians. Billy watched helplessly as his fellow diplomats were evacuated, leaving him as the sole human representative on the planet. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a physical force. "You must find evidence of Cardassian involvement," his superior's voice crackled through a secure channel. "Earth needs proof before we can act. But be careful. We can't risk open conflict." Billy nodded grimly, knowing the impossible task that lay before him. How could he gather intelligence while under constant Cardassian surveillance? The answer came in an unexpected form. Late one night, as Billy pored over reports in his quarters, Boron slipped into the room. Her scales shimmered in the low light as she approached, her movements cautious. "I can help you," she whispered, her large eyes darting nervously to the door. "But you must trust me completely." Billy hesitated, years of diplomatic training warring with the connection he felt to this alien woman. Finally, he nodded. "What do you have in mind?" Boron produced a small data crystal, pressing it into Billy's hand. "This will give you access to restricted Cardassian security networks. Use it wisely." As Billy began his clandestine investigation, the political situation on Cardassia Prime grew increasingly volatile. Gul Madrid, having recovered from his encounter in the storage room, launched a vicious propaganda campaign against Earth and its representatives. "These aliens seek to corrupt our very way of life," Madrid's voice boomed from public broadcasts. "We must expel them before it's too late." His words found fertile ground among conservative Cardassians, many of whom had never fully accepted the idea of closer ties with Earth. Protests grew larger and more violent, with effigies of humans burned in the streets. Amidst this chaos, Billy worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. The data provided by Boron proved invaluable, leading him through a labyrinth of classified files and encrypted communications. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge, one that pointed directly to Gul Madrid as the orchestrator of the attacks. But before Billy could transmit his findings to Earth, disaster struck. Gul Dukat, his reptilian features set in a mask of false concern, arrived at Billy's quarters, flanked by armed guards. "I'm afraid we must confiscate your communication devices," Dukat announced, his voice dripping with insincere regret. "For your own protection, of course. You'll be placed under house arrest until we can guarantee your safety." Billy's protests fell on deaf ears as his quarters were stripped of all technology. As the door sealed shut behind Dukat, Billy realized he was truly alone. cut off from Earth and trapped in an increasingly hostile alien world. Days stretched into weeks as Billy's confinement continued. Outside his windows, he could see the unrest growing. Cardassian news broadcasts, carefully curated to reach him, spoke of rising anti-human sentiment and calls for his expulsion, or worse. Gul Madred seized upon the opportunity, using Billy's isolation to further his xenophobic agenda. "This so-called diplomat is nothing more than a spy," Madred declared in a fiery speech before the Cardassian Central Command. "He must be tried for his crimes against our people." The speech sent shockwaves through Cardassian society. Conservative factions rallied behind Madred, seeing a chance to reassert Cardassian superiority and end the controversial human-Cardassian engagement once and for all. Boron, torn between her duty and her growing feelings for Billy, knew she had to act. Under cover of night, she made her way to the home of Dr. Cora, a renowned Cardassian archaeologist known for her unorthodox theories about ancient interspecies cooperation. "You must help us," Boron pleaded, laying out the situation. "The human diplomat has uncovered evidence of our shared history, evidence that could change everything." Dr. Cora's eyes widened as she examined the historical records Boron had brought. This is extraordinary," she breathed. "If what you're saying is true, it could rewrite our understanding of Cardassian history." As Dr. Cora began her analysis, the diplomatic crisis reached a boiling point. Earth, enraged by Billy's detention and the attacks on its facilities, threatened severe economic sanctions. Meanwhile, Gul Madred and his supporters demanded Billy's immediate trial and punishment. Caught between these competing pressures, Gul Dukat devised a plan to maintain his political position. He announced a public trial for Billy, ostensibly to give the human a chance to prove his innocence. But behind closed doors, Dukat plotted to manipulate the proceedings, ensuring a guilty verdict that would appease the hardliners while maintaining plausible deniability with Earth. Unaware of the political machinations surrounding him, Billy prepared for his trial with Boron's clandestine assistance. They worked in secret, gathering evidence to exonerate Billy and expose Madred's true role in the attacks. Their efforts were complicated by the need for absolute secrecy. Boron recruited a small network of sympathetic Cardassians, scientists, low-level bureaucrats, and even a few military officers who saw the potential benefits of improved human-Cardassian relations. As the date of the trial approached, Dr. Cora made a stunning breakthrough. Deep in the ancient records, she discovered evidence of a joint human-Cardassian expedition to a distant star system, thousands of years in the past. "This changes everything," Dr. Cora explained to Boron, her voice trembling with excitement. "It proves that our species not only coexisted peacefully, but worked together in ways we never imagined possible." The revelation had the potential to upend centuries of Cardassian isolationist doctrine and reshape the entire society. But with Billy's trial looming and tensions at an all-time high, Boron faced an impossible choice. Should she risk everything to bring this information to light, potentially saving Billy and transforming Cardassian society? Or should she remain loyal to her people's long-held beliefs, allowing the trial to proceed as Gul Dukat had planned? As Boron agonized over her decision, the streets of the Cardassian capital seethed with unrest. Protesters clashed with security forces, their angry chants echoing through the night. In his isolated quarters, Billy could only wait, hoping that the truth would somehow find a way to prevail. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, with the power to reshape the future of human-Cardassian relations, and perhaps the entire galactic order, resting in the scaled hands of one conflicted Cardassian woman. The day of Billy's trial arrived with a tension that seemed to permeate every corner of the Cardassian capital. As he was escorted into the imposing Grand Cardassian court, Billy could feel the weight of countless eyes upon him. The courtroom buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and hostility, filled to capacity with Cardassian officials, curious onlookers, and a small contingent of human diplomats who had been granted permission to attend. Gul Dukat sat at the center of the raised judicial bench, his scales gleaming under the harsh lights. His face was a mask of impassivity, but Billy caught a glint of calculation in those reptilian eyes. As the proceedings began, Dukat's voice rang out, smooth and controlled. We are gathered here today to determine the guilt or innocence of the human diplomat, William Thornton, on charges of espionage and cultural subversion. The prosecution, led by a fervent Cardassian named Glyn Tadger, wasted no time in painting Billy as a devious infiltrator. Tadger's voice dripped with contempt as he presented a series of doctored communications and falsified reports. As you can see, Tadger declared, gesturing to a holographic display, the accused systematically gathered sensitive information on Cardassian military installations. His engagement to a Cardassian citizen was merely a ploy to gain further access to our society. Billy's heart sank as he watched the fabricated evidence pile up. He knew the truth, but how could he prove it in the face of such a carefully constructed lie? Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, a familiar voice cut through the courtroom. I request permission to testify on behalf of the accused. All eyes turned to see Boron standing tall, her scaled features set with grit. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as she made her way to the witness stand. Boron's testimony was a masterclass in diplomacy and courage. She spoke of Billy's genuine curiosity about Cardassian culture, his efforts to bridge the gap between their peoples, and the personal connection they had formed. William Thornton is not the infiltrator you claim, Boron stated, her gaze sweeping across the courtroom. He is a man of integrity who has worked tirelessly to foster understanding between our species. As Boron spoke, Billy noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Some of the hostility seemed to ebb, replaced by a cautious curiosity. Even Gul Dukat leaned forward, his interest piqued. The proceedings took an unexpected turn when the doors of the courtroom burst open. Dr. Cora strode in, her arms laden with ancient artifacts and data crystals. Honored members of the court, she announced, her voice ringing with excitement. I have evidence that will change everything we thought we knew about our history. Over the next hour, Dr. Cora presented her findings, tangible proof of ancient cooperation between humans and Cardassians. She showed holographic reconstructions of joint expeditions, shared technological advancements, and even examples of cultural exchange. Our peoples were not always divided, Dr. Cora concluded, her eyes shining. We have a shared history, one of collaboration and mutual respect. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Cardassians argued amongst themselves, some dismissing the evidence outright, while others clamored for more information. Gul Dukat called for order, but his voice was drowned out by the commotion. Suddenly, the sounds of violence echoed from outside. Gul Madred's supporters had taken to the streets, clashing with security forces in an attempt to disrupt the trial. The situation was quickly spiraling out of control. As panic began to spread through the courtroom, Billy's mind raced. He caught sight of a control panel near his position, one he recognized from his conversations with Boron about Cardassian environmental systems. Without hesitation, Billy lunged for the panel. His fingers flew over the controls, inputting a complex sequence. Moments later, a fine mist began to fill the air outside the courthouse. The rioters, caught off guard, found themselves disoriented and unbalanced. The violence outside quickly dissipated as Madred's supporters stumbled away, unable to continue their assault. Inside the courtroom, Cardassian military officers watched the scene unfold with a mixture of surprise and grudging admiration. As order was restored, an urgent communication came through to Gul Dukat. His eyes widened as he listened, then turned to regard Billy with a new intensity. It seems, Dukat announced, his voice carrying a note of resignation, that we have received evidence from Earth implicating Gul Madred in the attacks on their diplomatic facilities. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Cardassians who had been calling for Billy's head now turned their ire towards Madred, who sat pale and rigid in his seat. As the implications of this new information sank in, a group of moderate Cardassian scientists and diplomats approached the bench. They proposed a joint research initiative to further explore the shared history uncovered by Dr. Cora. This could be an opportunity, one of them suggested, to forge a new era of cooperation between our peoples. The atmosphere in the courtroom had shifted dramatically. Where there had been hostility, now there was a cautious hope. Even Gul Dukat seemed to be reconsidering his position, his eyes darting between Billy and the artifacts brought by Dr. Cora. But Gul Madred, seeing his carefully laid plans crumbling around him, was not ready to admit defeat. With a snarl of rage, he leapt to his feet, drawing a concealed weapon. "Die, human filth!" he roared, aiming at Billy. Time seemed to slow as the disruptor blast lanced across the courtroom. Billy braced for impact, but instead felt himself being shoved aside. He hit the ground hard, rolling to see Boron collapsing, a smoking wound on her scaled chest. The courtroom erupted into pandemonium. Security officers swarmed Madred, wrestling him to the ground. Billy crawled to Boron's side, cradling her head as medics rushed forward. "Why?" he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Boron's eyes, usually so sharp and alert, were clouded with pain. But as she looked up at Billy, a small smile played across her lips. "Because," she rasped, "some things are worth fighting for." As Boron was rushed away for medical treatment, Billy found himself at the center of a maelstrom. Cardassians who had reviled him now looked on with a mixture of confusion and respect. The human diplomats pushed forward, demanding to speak with him. Gul Dukat's voice cut through the chaos, declaring the trial adjourned pending further investigation. As Billy was led from the courtroom, he realized that everything had changed. The future of human-Cardassian relations now balanced on a knife's edge, with the potential for either a new age of cooperation or a plunge into deeper conflict. And at the heart of it all stood Billy, no longer just a diplomat, but a living symbol of what could be achieved when two species dared to reach across the gulf of mistrust and find common ground. The aftermath of the trial left Billy reeling, his mind struggling to process the whirlwind of events that had unfolded. As he was escorted from the courtroom, he caught snippets of frantic conversations and saw the dawning realization on many Cardassian faces that their world was about to change. In the days that followed, the Cardassian capital buzzed with activity. Gul Dukat, ever the political chameleon, seized the opportunity to rebrand himself as a progressive leader. In a televised address, he stood before the Cardassian people, his scaled features set in a mask of grave concern. "My fellow Cardassians," Dukat began, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "recent events have brought to light disturbing truths about elements within our government. I stand before you today to denounce the actions of Gul Madred and his co-conspirators." As Dukat spoke, Billy watched from a secure location, flanked by a mix of human and Cardassian security personnel. He couldn't help but admire the politician's skill, even as he remained wary of Dukat's true motives. "In the light of these revelations," Dukat continued, "I have ordered the immediate arrest of Gul Madred and a full investigation into his activities. We must embrace this opportunity to forge a new path, one of cooperation and mutual understanding with our human neighbors." The speech sent shockwaves through Cardassian society. Hardliners railed against what they saw as a betrayal of their isolationist principles, while moderates cautiously welcomed the prospect of improved interstellar relations. For Billy, the days blurred together in a flurry of debriefings, medical checkups, and tense negotiations between Earth and Cardassia. He found moments of respite in his visits to Boron, who was recovering in a military medical facility. "You should see the looks on their faces," Boron said during one such visit, her voice weak but tinged with amusement. "Half the medical staff can't decide if they should treat me as a hero or a traitor." Billy took her scaled hand in his, careful of the intravenous lines. "You're a hero to me," he said softly. "I owe you my life." Boron's eyes, still sharp despite her injuries, locked onto his. "We both know this is bigger than just us, Billy. What happens next will shape the future of both our peoples." As if in answer to Boron's words, a joint announcement from Earth and Cardassia came just days later. The Cardassian Central Command, in a move that stunned many, proposed a joint scientific expedition to investigate the ancient connection between humans and Cardassians. Billy found himself thrust into the center of this new initiative. In a private meeting with Earth's ambassadorial staff, he received his new assignment. "We need someone who understands the complexities of Cardassian culture," the lead ambassador explained. "Someone who's proven they can navigate their political landscape. You're our best option, Thornton." And so, barely recovered from his ordeal, Billy found himself aboard the Galore, a state-of-the-art Cardassian science vessel. The ship hummed with activity as the mixed crew of humans and Cardassians prepared for their unprecedented mission. Dr. Cora bustled about the ship's laboratory, her scaled hands dancing over holographic displays as she reviewed the ancient records. The engineering principles hinted at in these texts, she mused, her eyes gleaming with excitement, they could revolutionize our understanding of subspace mechanics. Billy watched her work, marveling at the Cardassian scientist's passion. It was a far cry from the rigid militaristic image of Cardassians he'd grown up with. A familiar voice drew his attention. Quite a change from your usual diplomatic postings, isn't it? Boron stood in the lab's entrance, her posture still slightly stiff from her healing injuries. She wore the insignia of the expedition's security chief, a position that would keep her close to Billy throughout the mission. I never thought I'd find myself on a Cardassian ship as an invited guest, Billy admitted with a wry smile. Boron's scaled lips twitched in what Billy had come to recognize as amusement. There's a first time for everything, it seems. As the Galler entered the uncharted star system mentioned in the ancient records, a palpable tension filled the bridge. Human and Cardassian crew members worked side by side, their former animosities set aside in the face of potential discovery. Sensors are picking up an artificial structure, the Cardassian at the science station reported, his voice tight with excitement. On the main view screen, an image dedication itself, a massive space station hanging against the backdrop of an alien star. Its design was like nothing Billy had ever seen, incorporating elements that seemed both familiar and utterly foreign. Incredible, Dr. Cora breathed, her eyes wide as she studied the readouts. The technology, it's far beyond our current capabilities. And yet, look at those structural elements. They're reminiscent of both human and Cardassian architectural styles. Billy felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with trepidation. Well, he said, looking around at the expectant faces of the crew, I suppose it's time we had a closer look. The away team assembled in the Galor's transporter room, a mix of human and Cardassian scientists, with Billy and Boron at the helm. As the transporter beam engulfed them, Billy caught Boron's eye. The Cardassian woman gave him a slight nod, a gesture that spoke volumes about the trust they'd built. They materialized in a vast, dimly lit corridor. The air was stale but breathable, suggesting the station's life support systems were still partially functional after millennia of abandonment. Incredible, one of the human scientists whispered, running a hand along the smooth, unfamiliar alloy of the walls. Billy tapped his communicator. Away team to Galor. We've arrived safely. Beginning our survey now. As they moved deeper into the station, Billy couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The corridors seemed to shift and change, leading them inexorably towards the heart of the structure. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught his attention. A holographic image sprang to life before them, a recording of humans and Cardassians working side by side on some massive project. By the state, Boron murmured, her usual composure slipping in the face of this concrete evidence of their shared history. The team stood transfixed, watching as their ancestors collaborated on technology far beyond their current understanding. It was a moment of profound revelation, one that had the power to reshape the narratives of both their species. Their awe was short-lived. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and Billy's instincts screamed danger. "Everyone down!" he shouted, just as a beam of energy sizzled past where his head had been moments before. Sleek metallic drones emerged from hidden compartments in the walls, their weapons trained on the away team. The ancient station's defense systems had awakened, and they didn't seem to differentiate between their human and Cardassian intruders. Boron sprang into action, her combat training evident in every fluid movement. She disabled one drone with a precisely aimed shot from her disruptor, then rolled to take cover behind a fallen piece of debris. Billy's diplomatic skills took a back seat to survival instinct as he dove for cover, narrowly avoiding another energy blast. He found himself shoulder to shoulder with Dr. Cora, the Cardassian scientist's eyes wide with fear and excitement. "The station's systems," Cora gasped between bursts of weapons fire. "They must be keyed to specific biosignatures. Our presence has triggered some kind of automated response." Billy's mind raced, processing this information even as he tried to formulate a plan. He watched as human and Cardassian members of the away team worked in tandem, covering each other and slowly pushing back against the drone assault. It was a dance of cooperation, born of necessity, and Billy couldn't help but see the irony. Here they were, forced to work together just as their ancestors had millennia ago. As the firefight raged on, Billy's gaze was drawn to a control panel near the far end of the corridor. Its design was unlike anything he'd seen on the station so far, incorporating elements that seemed tantalizingly familiar. "Boron!" he called out, gesturing towards the panel. "Cover me!" The Cardassian security chief nodded, laying down a barrage of suppressing fire as Billy sprinted towards the panel. Energy blasts sizzled past him, close enough that he could feel their heat on his skin. Reaching the panel, Billy's hands flew over the unfamiliar controls. He drew upon everything he'd learned about Cardassian and human interface design, searching for patterns, for any hint of how to shut down the defense systems. A stray blast struck near the panel, showering Billy with sparks. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. And then, like a puzzle piece sliding into place, he saw it, a sequence that incorporated both human and Cardassian elements. With a silent prayer to whatever forces might be listening, Billy input the sequence. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a series of high-pitched whines, the drones powered down and retracted into their hidden compartments. The sudden silence was deafening. Billy sagged against the panel, his heart pounding in his ears. He looked up to see Boron approaching, her disruptor still at the ready. "Quick thinking," she said, her voice tinged with respect. "How did you know that would work?" Billy shook his head, still processing what had happened. "I didn't, but it made sense. If this station was built by both our species working together, then maybe it needed both of us to control it." Dr. Kor joined them, her eyes shining with excitement despite the danger they'd just faced. "This is extraordinary," she said, gesturing around them. "Every new discovery raises more questions. What was the purpose of this station? Why did our peoples abandon it?" As if in answer to her questions, the corridor was suddenly bathed in light. Holographic displays sprang to life along the walls, showing schematics and data streams that Billy couldn't begin to comprehend. "It's leading us somewhere," one of the human scientists said, pointing down the corridor where a series of lights had begun to pulse. Billy straightened, brushing off his uniform. "Well," he said, looking at his team, human and Cardassian alike, "shall we see what other secrets this station holds?" With a mix of trepidation and excitement, the away team moved deeper into the heart of the ancient structure. Whatever they were about to discover, Billy knew it had the potential to change everything, not just for him and Boron, but for their entire species. The true test of their newfound alliance was just beginning. As they ventured deeper into the station's core, the away team found themselves in a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing, crystalline structure. Holographic displays flickered to life, bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. "This must be the central control hub," Dr. Cora breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Billy approached a console, its unfamiliar design a blend of human and Cardassian elements. As his fingers brushed the surface, the entire chamber hummed to life. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the holographic displays turned an angry red. "What's happening?" Boron demanded, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. Dr. Cora frantically scanned the readouts. "The station's core is destabilizing. It's creating a subspace rift that could tear this entire system apart." Billy's mind raced. "Can we shut it down?" "No," Dr. Cora shook her head. "But we might be able to contain it. Look at these schematics. It's designed to create a stable subspace bubble. If we can activate that system—" "Do it," Billy ordered. As Dr. Cora worked feverishly at the console, Billy and Boron moved to assist. The chamber shuddered ominously, and Billy could feel the deck plates vibrating beneath his feet. "We need more power to the containment field," Dr. Cora shouted over the increasing din. Billy spotted a secondary power coupling. "Boron, help me with this." Together they wrestled with the ancient machinery. Billy's hands burned as he rerouted power conduits, guided by Boron's steady presence at his side. Their movements were synchronized, each anticipating the other's needs without a word. The chamber's shaking intensified. A support beam crashed down nearby, narrowly missing a human scientist. "Now!" Dr. Cora yelled. Billy slammed the final connection into place. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then with a sound like thunder, a shimmering field expanded from the central crystal, enveloping the entire station. The shaking subsided. The alarms fell silent. Billy let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "We did it," Baran said softly, her scaled hand resting on Billy's shoulder. As the adrenaline faded, the implications of what they'd accomplished began to sink in. Human and Cardassian, working in perfect harmony to save not just themselves, but an irreplaceable piece of their shared history. In the days that followed, the expedition team threw themselves into exploring the newly stabilized station. The central database proved to be a treasure trove beyond their wildest expectations. "Look at this," Dr. Cora exclaimed, gesturing to a holographic star chart. "It's a network of similar stations, spread across the entire quadrant." Billy studied the map, his heart pounding at the possibilities. A faster-than-light transportation network? This could revolutionize interstellar travel. As they delved deeper into the ancient records, a picture began to emerge of a time when humans and Cardassians had worked together to push the boundaries of science and exploration. It was a history that challenged everything both species thought they knew about themselves and each other. When news of their discoveries reached Earth and Cardassia Prime, the reaction was immediate and intense. The Galor's communication array was flooded with transmissions from both governments, each eager to stake their claim on this newfound knowledge. In a private conference with Earth's diplomatic corps, Billy found himself at the center of a storm of competing interests. "This technology could give us an insurmountable advantage," one admiral argued. "We can't risk sharing it with the Cardassians." "But it's as much their heritage as ours," Billy countered. "Trying to keep this to ourselves would only breed more distrust and conflict." The debate raged on, with no clear resolution in sight. It was Gul Dukat who surprisingly offered a potential way forward. "A joint task force," the Cardassian leader proposed in a broadcast to both planets. "Let us explore this legacy together, as our ancestors once did." The suggestion sent shockwaves through both governments. While many saw it as an unprecedented opportunity for cooperation, others viewed it with deep suspicion. As the Galor made its way back to Cardassian space, Billy found himself working tirelessly to navigate the complex political landscape. He drafted proposal after proposal, seeking a middle ground that would satisfy both sides while preserving the spirit of cooperation that had led to their discovery. It was during one late-night strategy session that Billy hit upon an idea. "What if we create an independent consortium?" he mused aloud. "Not just humans and Cardassians, but open to other species as well. A truly collaborative effort to explore and develop this technology." Boron, who had been reviewing security protocols nearby, looked up with interest. That could work. It would alleviate fears of any one species gaining too much power. The idea gained traction quickly, especially among moderate factions on both sides. But as support for the consortium grew, so did opposition from more extreme elements. Reports reached the Galor of a hardline Cardassian military faction, led by the escaped Gul Madrid, that viewed any sharing of the technology as a betrayal of Cardassian interest. Simultaneously, a human supremacist group, calling themselves the Children of Terra, began lobbying Earth's government to claim sole ownership of the discovery. The situation came to a head as the Galor approached Cardassia Prime. In a bold move, Gul Madred's loyalists attempted to seize control of the ship. Billy and Boran found themselves in the thick of the action, fighting side by side to retake the bridge. As they moved through the corridors, covering each other and coordinating their attacks, Billy marveled at how naturally they worked together. With the ship secure and the conspirators in custody, Billy turned his attention to the looming diplomatic summit on Cardassia Prime. Representatives from Earth, Cardassia, and other interested parties would be gathering to decide the fate of the ancient network. As the Galor entered orbit around Cardassia Prime, Billy stood at the viewport, gazing down at the planet below. The weight of what was to come pressed heavily upon him. Boran joined him, her presence a comforting constant amid the uncertainty. "Whatever happens down there," she said quietly, "know that you've already changed the course of history. Our peoples working together. That alone is a victory. Billy nodded, drawing strength from her words. As they prepared to beam down to the planet's surface, he knew that the greatest challenges and opportunities still lay ahead. The journey to unlock the secrets of their shared past and forge a new future had only just begun. As the Galore entered Cardassian space, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Billy stood at his station, eyes fixed on the sensor readings. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Multiple vessels approaching," the tactical officer announced. "Cardassian warships, heavily armed." Billy's heart raced as he recognized the lead ship. "It's Gul Madred," he said, his voice tight. Before anyone could respond, another alert sounded. "Earth vessels incoming," the officer reported, led by the USS Intrepid. Captain Nelson's face hardened. "Open a channel to both fleets." The viewscreen flickered to life, split between the stern visage of Gul Madred and the cold dedication of Admiral Helena Graves. "This is Captain Nelson of the Galore. We come in peace." "Surrender your ship and all data immediately," Gul Madred interrupted, his voice dripping with contempt. Admiral Graves leaned forward. "The discoveries aboard the Galore are the property of Earth. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Billy watched the exchange, his mind racing. He caught Boran's eye across the bridge, a silent understanding passing between them. As the captain continued to argue with the fleet commanders, Billy slipped away from his station. He hurried through the corridors, Boran close behind. "We need to secure the data," Billy said as they entered a secure room. "If either side gets their hands on it..." Boran nodded. "The consequences would be catastrophic." Working swiftly, Billy transferred the ancient station's data to an encrypted core. He hesitated for a moment, then handed it to Boran. "I trust you," he said simply. Boran's eyes widened, but she took the core without hesitation. "What's our next move?" Billy took a deep breath. "Something risky." They returned to the bridge just as the situation was reaching a boiling point. Both fleets had weapons locked on the Galore. "Captain," Billy said, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Permission to address both fleets." Captain Nelson looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Billy stepped forward, facing the viewscreen. "Gul Madred, Admiral Graves, distinguished leaders of both fleets. I am Lieutenant Commander William Howard. I was there when we discovered the ancient station. I've seen firsthand the wonders it holds, and the dangers." He paused, meeting the eyes of both fleet commanders. "This discovery is bigger than any one species. It has the potential to reshape our entire galaxy, but only if we work together." Billy outlined his proposal for a multi-species consortium, his words painting a vision of cooperation and shared advancement. As he spoke, he could see the doubt in some eyes give way to curiosity, even excitement. "I propose an emergency summit on Cardassia Prime," he concluded. "Let us discuss this openly as equals. The future of our peoples, of our entire quadrant, hangs in the balance." For a moment, silence reigned. Then slowly, voices of support began to emerge from both fleets. Moderate leaders saw the potential in Billy's words. "We will attend this summit," Admiral Graves said finally, her voice tight. Gul Madred's eyes narrowed, but he too nodded his assent. As the Galore docked at the Cardassian capital spaceport, Billy looked out at the sea of protesters filling the streets. Signs demanding Cardassian supremacy clashed with those calling for cooperation. "Stay alert," Boran murmured as they disembarked. "This crowd is volatile." They moved through the throng, security personnel from both species forming a protective cordon around the expedition team. The air was thick with tension and the acrid smell of industrial emissions. Suddenly, a figure broke through the security line, a disruptor raised. "Death to human collaborators!" the Cardassian shouted. Time seemed to slow. Billy saw the weapon discharge, felt the heat of the blast approaching. Then he was on the ground, Boran's weight on top of him. She rolled off immediately, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The would-be assassin fell, and chaos erupted. Security forces rushed to contain the situation as news drones buzzed overhead, capturing every moment. "Are you all right?" Boran asked, helping Billy to his feet. He nodded, still processing what had happened. You saved my life. As they hurried towards the central command building, Billy caught glimpses of the footage being broadcast on massive screens throughout the city. Humans and Cardassians working together, protecting each other. He saw the uncertainty in some faces give way to thoughtful consideration. Inside the summit chamber, Billy stood before the assembled leaders, the weight of history on his shoulders. He activated a holographic display, filling the room with images of the ancient station. What you're seeing is irrefutable proof of our shared history, he began. Thousands of years ago, humans and Cardassians worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of science and exploration. Dr. Cora stepped forward, her voice filled with excitement as she detailed the potential applications of the discovered technologies. Faster than light travel, clean energy production on a massive scale, even terraforming capabilities that could transform barren worlds into paradise. The room buzzed with excited whispers. Billy could see the greed in some eyes, the genuine wonder in others. He opened his mouth to continue, but alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. We're under attack, a security officer shouted. Gul Madred's forces have breached the perimeter. Chaos erupted as guards rushed to evacuate the political leaders. Billy caught Baran's eye, and they moved as one toward the security station. We need to hold them off, Billy said, grabbing a phaser. Give the diplomats time to reach safety. Boran nodded, her disruptor already in hand. Just like old times? They advanced down the corridor, a mixed team of human and Cardassian security personnel falling in behind them. The sound of weapons fire grew louder. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with Madred's soldiers, the air filled with energy blasts and acrid smoke. Billy ducked behind a fallen support beam, returning fire. He marveled at how naturally he and Boran coordinated their movements, covering each other's blind spots, anticipating each other's needs. A Cardassian soldier fell to Billy's left, clutching a wounded arm. Without hesitation, a human medic rushed to his aid, applying a pressure bandage even as disruptor fire sizzled overhead. The battle raged on, but slowly, surely, they began to push Madred's forces back. The combined strengths of human adaptability and Cardassian discipline proved a formidable combination. Just as victory seemed within reach, Billy's communicator chirped. Commander Howard, Captain Nelson's voice crackled. We have a situation. Admiral Graves has gone rogue. She's after the data core. Billy's blood ran cold. He turned to Boran, saw the same realization in her eyes. They had to stop Graves, but abandoning their position could mean losing the entire building to Madred. In that moment, Billy made a choice that would echo through history. Boran, he said, his voice steady, take half the team and secure the data. I'll hold the line here. Boran hesitated for a split second, then nodded. As she moved out, Billy turned back to the battle, his perseverance hardening. The future of two worlds hung in the balance, and he would not let it fall. The combined human Cardassian force had prevailed, but at a cost. Smoke filled the corridors, and the acrid smell of weapons fire lingered in the air. Billy lowered his phaser, surveying the aftermath. Secure the prisoners, he ordered, gesturing to the subdued remnants of Madred's forces, and get medical teams in here immediately. As the security teams moved to comply, Billy's communicator chirped again. Howard here, he answered, his voice rough from the smoke. Billy, it's Boran, came the reply. We've neutralized Admiral Graves. She never reached the data core. Relief washed over him. Good work. Any casualties? Minor injuries only. We're securing her and her team now. Billy nodded, though Boran couldn't see it. Meet me in the central chamber. We need to salvage this summit. 15 minutes later, Billy stood before the reconvened delegates. Many looked shaken, but there was a new drive in their eyes. What we've just experienced, Billy began, his voice carrying across the hushed room, is a stark reminder of why this cooperation is so vital. Together, we stop those who would drag us back into conflict and division. He activated the holographic display once more, filling the chamber with images of the ancient station. This technology represents a future of shared progress and exploration. I propose we formalize our partnership immediately. Over the next several hours, intense negotiations unfolded. Billy found himself at the center, mediating disputes and offering compromises. By the time the Cardassian sun began to set, visible through the chamber's high windows, a framework had been established. The Galactic Cooperative for Advanced Technologies, Legate Takani Gamor announced, reading from the newly drafted charter. A multi-species consortium dedicated to the study and ethical development of the ancient network and its technologies. Applause filled the chamber. Billy felt a presence at his side and turned to see Boren, a rare smile on her face. "Congratulations, Billy," she said softly. "You've made history today." Before he could respond, Captain Nelson approached. "Commander Howard, a word?" Billy followed her to a quiet corner of the room. "Sir?" Nelson's expression was a mix of pride and resignation. "Starfleet's putting together a joint command structure for this new consortium. They want you as the human representative and co-chair." Billy blinked, momentarily stunned. "Me? But surely there are more qualified—" Nelson held up a hand. "You're the face of this partnership now, Billy. The brass recognizes that." She paused, a hint of a smile breaking through. "Besides, who else could wrangle a room full of bickering diplomats so effectively?" In the weeks that followed, the newly christened GC-8 took shape at a dizzying pace. A neutral space station, christened Unity, was quickly retrofitted to serve as their headquarters. Orbiting an uninhabited planet along the human Cardassian border, it became a symbol of their shared purpose. Billy found himself thrust into a whirlwind of activity. Between strategy sessions, personnel assignments, and seemingly endless diplomatic functions, he barely had time to process the enormity of what they were undertaking. It was during one rare quiet moment, staring out the viewport of his new office aboard Unity, that Billy heard a familiar voice. "Admiring the view?" Boron asked, entering the room. Billy turned, smiling. "Just trying to catch my breath. It's been nonstop since Cardassia Prime." Boron nodded, her expression growing serious. "We've received intelligence about a potential first target for activation, an ancient station in the Valora system." Excitement coursed through Billy. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow," Boron replied. "We're assembling a multi-species team. Humans, Cardassians, and representatives from the Vulcans, Andorians, and Tellarites." The next day, Billy stood in Unity's main hangar, watching as their diverse crew boarded the USS Horizon, a state-of-the-art research vessel. He felt a familiar thrill of anticipation, tempered by the weight of responsibility. As they approached the Valora system, Billy gathered the team in the ship's conference room. "We're about to make history," he began, looking around at the assembled faces. "But we need to be prepared for anything. This technology is ancient and potentially unstable." The Andorian science officer, Thalen, spoke up. "Our scans indicate the station's power core is still active, but at minimal levels. We'll need to initiate a carefully calibrated activation sequence." Billy nodded. "All right, let's run through the procedure one more time." Hours later, the Horizon hung in space before the ancient station. Its design was unlike anything Billy had ever seen, a blend of smooth, organic curves and sharp geometric angles. "Beginning docking procedure," the helm officer announced. Billy felt the slight shudder as the ship connected with the station. He turned to the assembled team. "Remember your training. We do this together." They moved through the airlock, entering the station's shadowy interior. Emergency lights flickered to life, revealing corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity. "This way," Thalen said, consulting his tricorder. "I'm detecting the main control center ahead." As they entered the vast chamber, consoles sprang to life around them. Holographic displays filled the air, depicting star charts and complex schematics. "Fascinating," the Vulcan scientist, T'Pel, murmured. "The interface appears to be designed for multiple species to operate simultaneously." Billy approached the central console. "All right, let's begin the activation sequence. Everyone to your stations." The team spread out, each member taking position at a different console. Billy placed his hand on the main interface, watching as it scanned his biosignature. "Initiating primary power-up," he called out. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red warning lights bathed the chamber. "Power core destabilizing," Thalen shouted. We're looking at a potential overload. Billy's mind raced. T'Pel, Thelen, focus on stabilizing the core. Boron, with me. We need to reroute power from the secondary systems. As they worked frantically, Billy felt a sense of déjà vu. Once again, he and Boron moved in perfect sync, anticipating each other's needs without a word. Power levels dropping, Thelen reported after several tense minutes. Core stabilizing. Billy let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Good work, everyone. Let's run a full diagnostic before we proceed. As the team analyzed the data from their near disaster, Billy couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their challenges. The ancient network held untold possibilities, but also hidden dangers. And somewhere out in the vastness of space, unknown forces were taking notice of their activities. He looked around at his diverse crew, each focused intently on their tasks. Despite their differences, they had come together in a moment of crisis. It gave him hope for the future of GCAT and the galaxy at large. But as the Horizon's long-range sensors picked up an incoming ship of unknown origin, Billy knew their work was nowhere near the end. The activation of this first station was just the opening move in a game whose rules they were only beginning to understand. As the unknown ship approached, Billy knew they faced challenges far beyond a simple station activation. Everyone to your stations, he ordered, his voice calm but firm. Thelen, keep monitoring that incoming vessel. T'Pel, I want a full analysis of the data we've gathered so far. As the crew scrambled to comply, Billy pulled Boron aside. We need to talk, he said quietly. Something bigger is happening here. In Billy's office, he activated a secure channel to GCAT headquarters. Nelson, we've got a situation, he began, quickly outlining the events at the ancient station and the approaching ship. Captain Nelson's expression grew grave. That's not all, Billy. We've received intelligence about a potential Cardassian coup. Gul Madred is making his move. Billy's mind raced, connecting the dots. The station activation, this ship, it's all connected, isn't it? Nelson nodded. We believe so. Madred's been gathering support, promising to use the ancient technology to restore Cardassian dominance. If he succeeds, GCAT is finished. Billy's eyes sharp. Not if I can help it. What are my orders? You're taking point on this, Commander, Nelson replied. Code name, Operation Starbridge. Your mission is to stabilize the political situation and secure GCAT's future. You have full autonomy. Good luck. As the transmission ended, Billy turned to Boron. I need your help. We're going to save GCAT and stop a coup. Boron's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded without hesitation. What's the plan? Over the next few hours, as the Horizon made its way back to Cardassian space, Billy assembled a small, trusted team. Dr. Cora joined them, her expertise in ancient technology crucial to their mission. A mix of human and Cardassian operatives rounded out the group, each vetted personally by Billy and Boron. In the ship's briefing room, Billy laid out the situation. Gul Madred is planning to overthrow the Cardassian government and seize control of GCAT's resources. Our job is to expose his conspiracy and prevent the coup. We'll be operating on Cardassian soil, so stealth is paramount. Dr. Cora spoke up, her voice excited despite the gravity of the situation. I've been working on something that might help. Using principles we discovered in the ancient station, I've developed a new type of surveillance device, virtually undetectable by current scanners. Billy nodded approvingly. Perfect. We'll use those to gather evidence at a meeting of Madred's supporters. Boron, you'll lead the infiltration team. As they neared Cardassia Prime, Billy focused on another crucial aspect of their mission. He opened secure channels to moderate factions within GCAT, working tirelessly to develop a new framework for sharing and implementing their technological discoveries. We need a system of checks and balances, he argued during one late-night video conference. No single species can be allowed to monopolize this technology. Our strength lies in our diversity and cooperation. The infiltration of Madred's meeting went off without a hitch. Boron's team, using Dr. Cora's advanced surveillance tech, gathered damning evidence of the planned coup. They uncovered details of weapons stockpiles and a list of compromised officials within the Cardassian government. But even as Billy reviewed this crucial intelligence, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from GCAT headquarters. Madred's forces are attacking." "Red alert," Billy ordered. "Set course for GCAT HQ, maximum warp. Boron, assemble our strike team. We're going in hot." The scene that greeted them as they approached the GCAT orbital facility was one of chaos. Madred's ships exchanged fire with loyal Cardassian vessels and Federation reinforcements. Billy's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. "Helm, take us in. Tactical, target Madred's lead ship. Disable their weapons and engines, but try to minimize casualties." As the horizon engaged, Billy led his strike team to the transporter room. They beamed directly into GCAT headquarters, materializing in the midst of a firefight between security forces and Madred's troops. Billy and Boron moved as one, their earlier teamwork on the ancient station translating seamlessly into combat. They pushed forward, coordinating with loyal GCAT personnel to retake key areas of the facility. In the command center, they found Madred himself, attempting to access the central database containing the ancient technology's secrets. The Cardassian turned, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "You're too late, Howard," he snarled, drawing a weapon. "The future belongs to Cardassia." Billy ducked behind a console as disruptor fire sizzled overhead. He caught Boron's eye and nodded. They had prepared for this. Together, they activated a device they'd been developing in secret, based on the ancient technology. A shimmering field expanded outward, enveloping Madred and his remaining forces. The coup leader's eyes widened in shock as he found himself unable to move. "It's over, Madred," Billy said, stepping forward. "The future belongs to all of us, working together." In the aftermath of the battle, Billy presented the evidence of Madred's conspiracy to the Cardassian government and GCAT member species. The revelation, combined with the successful defense of GCAT headquarters, strengthened support for the consortium and Billy's leadership. Addressing a packed assembly of diplomats and officials, Billy outlined his vision for GCAT's future. "Today, we've seen the power of cooperation in action, but our work is far from finished. I propose the creation of a GCAT ethics committee to ensure our discoveries benefit all species, not just a powerful few." As the assembly erupted in applause, Billy felt a mix of pride and trepidation. He'd averted a crisis and strengthened GCAT, but new challenges loomed on the horizon. More species were clamoring to join the consortium, and Billy knew that balancing growth with stability would be a delicate task. Later, alone in his office, Billy stared out at the stars. The weight of recent events pressed down on him, along with the realization that his feelings for Boron had deepened beyond mere professional respect. A chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Boron stepped inside, her usually stoic expression softened by a hint of concern. "You did well today, Billy," she said, "but I sense something troubles you." Billy turned to face her, acutely aware of the growing tension between them. "Boron, he began, unsure how to proceed. Before he could continue, a priority message flashed on his console. New data from the ancient network, warning of an imminent threat from beyond known space. Billy's eyes met Boron's, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever lay ahead, whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together. The future of GCAT and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Balance hung in the balance. As the weight of responsibility settled on Billy's shoulders, he made a decision. "Boron, I need some time to process everything that's happened," he said, his voice weary but resolute. "I'm taking a leave of absence from GCAT, and I'd like you to join me." Boron's ridged brow furrowed slightly. "A leave of absence? Now?" Billy nodded. "Just a short one. There's a newly discovered ancient station I've been wanting to explore. It could be the perfect opportunity for us to step back and gain some perspective." After a moment's consideration, Boron agreed. Within days, they were aboard a small research vessel, speeding towards the coordinates of the uncharted station. As they approached, the station loomed before them, a testament to the advanced civilization that had created it. Its sleek lines and shimmering surfaces seemed to defy the very laws of physics. "Incredible," Billy breathed as they docked. "Let's see what secrets this place holds." They made their way through the station's winding corridors, each step revealing new marvels of engineering and design. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the main control room. "This looks similar to the activation console we encountered before," Boron observed, running her hand over a smooth, pulsing surface. Billy nodded, stepping up beside her. Together, as their hands touched the console simultaneously, the room around them burst into life. Holographic displays sprang up, filling the air with swirling patterns of light and color, and then a figure appeared before them. The hologram was unlike any alien Billy had ever encountered. Its form seemed to shift and change, as if unable to settle on a single appearance. "Greetings, explorers," the figure spoke, its voice resonating not just in their ears, but in their minds as well. "You have proven yourselves worthy of our legacy." Billy and Boron exchanged stunned glances as the hologram continued. "The network you have discovered was created as a test, a grand experiment to determine if the diverse species of this galaxy could overcome their differences and work as one. By successfully activating and navigating our stations, you have demonstrated that you are ready for the next step in your evolution." The holographic figure gestured, and the room around them seemed to expand, revealing row upon row of glowing data crystals. "This is our gift to you, the collected knowledge and wisdom of dozens of civilizations that came before. Technologies beyond your current understanding, cultural insights that span millennia, and scientific discoveries that will reshape your understanding of the universe." Billy's mind raced with the implications. This could change everything," he whispered. The hologram nodded. "Indeed, but such knowledge comes with great responsibility. It can only be fully accessed and integrated by those who have formed deep, trust-based bonds across species lines. The future of your galaxy depends on cooperation and understanding between all sentient beings." Without hesitation, Billy turned to Boron. "We have to do this," he said. "Together." Boron's normally stoic features softened. "I agree. Whatever happens, we face it as one." The hologram guided them to a chamber at the heart of the station. As they stepped inside, Billy felt a moment of trepidation, but as he looked at Boron, he saw his own willpower mirrored in her eyes. The chamber activated, and suddenly Billy's mind exploded with sensation. He was no longer just himself. He was Boron, too. Every memory, every emotion, every deeply held belief flowed between them. He felt the weight of Cardassian history, the struggle between duty and personal desire that had defined so much of Boron's life. He experienced the precise, analytical nature of her thought processes, so different from his own intuitive leaps. And Boron, in turn, felt the burning curiosity that drove Billy, his deep-seated belief in the potential for cooperation between all species. She experienced his moments of self-doubt, hidden beneath a confident exterior, and the profound sense of purpose he'd found in G-Chat. As their minds intertwined, Billy and Boron were thrust into a vision of the future. They saw great ships of mixed crews exploring the furthest reaches of the galaxy. They witnessed humans and Cardassians working side by side to terraform barren worlds, to push the boundaries of scientific knowledge. But more than that, they saw themselves, together, two beings from different worlds, bridging the gap between their species in ways they had never imagined possible. As the vision faded and they found themselves back in the chamber, Billy and Boron looked at each other with new eyes. The connection between them had fundamentally changed, deepened beyond anything they had experienced before. "Billy," Boron said, her voice thick with emotion, I understand now. Everything." Billy nodded, equally moved. "So do I, and I think I know what we need to do next." They made their way back to GCAT headquarters, their minds buzzing with new knowledge and possibilities. Upon their return, Billy called an emergency meeting of the GCAT leadership. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice ringing with newfound purpose, "I stand before you today to propose a new initiative, one that will reshape not just GCAT, but the entire galaxy." He outlined his vision for Project Harmony, a comprehensive program designed to foster the same kind of deep, cross-species connections that he and Boron now shared. Cultural exchange programs to break down barriers of misunderstanding, joint scientific ventures to tackle the greatest challenges facing our worlds, diplomatic missions that go beyond mere negotiation to build true empathy between species. This is how we secure our future. As Billy spoke, he could see the excitement building in the room. Even the most skeptical members of the assembly were leaning forward, caught up in the potential of his words. But this is just the beginning, Billy continued. What we've discovered, what Boron and I have experienced, it's something that needs to be shared, not just within GCAT, but with all species who are willing to join us in this grand endeavor. The assembly erupted in applause and questions, but Billy's focus was on Boron. She stood at the back of the room, a small smile playing on her lips. In that moment, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the meeting adjourned and plans for Project Harmony began to take shape, Billy and Boron found a quiet moment alone. "You know," Boron said, a hint of amusement in her voice, "when I first met you, I never imagined we'd end up here." Billy laughed. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change it for anything." They stood in comfortable silence, watching as ships from a dozen different worlds docked at the GCAT station. Each vessel represented a new opportunity, a chance to build the kind of deep, lasting connections that would shape the future of the galaxy. As they contemplated the challenges and adventures that lay ahead, Boron turned to Billy with a mischievous glint in her eye. "You know," she said, "I never did get an answer to my original question." Billy's brow furrowed for a moment before he burst into laughter, remembering the innocent query that had started their entire journey together. He leaned in close, whispering something in her ear that made them both dissolve into fits of laughter. As their laughter subsided, they turned back to the view before them, hand in hand. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if heralding the dawn of a new era, an era of understanding, cooperation, and endless possibility. And as they stood there, united in purpose and in heart, Billy and Boron knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. In fact, it was just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.